What's up, everybody? Jordan Stewart here from Vover. Thanks so much for tapping into the Vover original show. Just a reminder that if you want to drop your opinions about the episode or respond to the host and guests with your voice, go and download the Vover app wherever you get your apps. Vover, voice over everything. Enjoyed the show.
What's going on, Vover Wrestling? It's Wednesday, so you know what that means. It's time for another edition of the 3 Count. I am your host, Regular Scott, and this week I am joined by a special guest who will be bringing you knowledge that I cannot bring you because this man is just a wealth of knowledge. You can see him, or you can read his articles on Forbes. Some of them will be on the Bleacher Report. He also has a podcast on Wrestle Inc. It is Alfred Konuwa. Welcome to the show, and thank you for being on.
Thank you for having me, Scott. It's a pleasure to be here, man.
Thank you. And your skits on Twitter have sort of become legendary, and they've definitely been the talk, at least among the wrestling community online. They're a lot of fun.
Thank you. I have a lot of fun doing it, and I'm just glad that people are at the very least talking about these issues. You know, that is my number one goal, is to at least raise awareness about a narrative that I feel gets ignored far too often in wrestling in terms of representation, in terms of specifically with AEW and at the top of AEW and what I've noticed, and I'm glad that it's getting people talking.
And the way you do it is very well done, as far as I like the fact that it's not, you know, you're bringing awareness to it, but you're also acknowledging that, hey, they're doing a really good thing here. You know, I just would like to see a little bit more people that look like me getting to be a part of this really cool thing that they're doing. And I appreciate that take on it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. That's what tends to get, and I'm very careful about saying that because people are so quick when it comes to talking about race to just go to the, oh, you think they're racist. You think they're like, if I did think they were racist, I would not be watching and supporting them. So I think it's important to mention the fact that I do think they're doing a good job booking pro wrestling, which makes me even more envious that they can't seem to find any spots for black people to be a part of this process. This is why, you know, I love coming on shows like the 3 Count to talk about stuff like that so that we can work together to talk about these issues.
No, I'm with you, and that's actually going to be our first topic is representation in wrestling. And you know, we see AEW, and they've obviously made a change. They've made a huge impact in the wrestling landscape. But you know, there is not a lot of color at the top of the card. You know, we've had Nyla Rose be at the top of the women's division, but that's pretty much been about it. People will point to Scorpio Sky, but was he even really the guy in SCU? Talk to me a little bit about representation in AEW and why it's so important to have just, you know, black wrestlers not just competing, but winning these big matches.
Yeah, and that's the point is, yes, there are plenty of black wrestlers who are there and have even won to a limited capacity. But in terms of fully fleshed out characters, top stars, people who are perennial in the world title conversation and even project to be in the world title position in the future, that is just not in existence in terms of black wrestlers. And I think it's important because pro wrestling is a variety show. It's cut from the same cloth as Saturday Night Live, as the Muppets, where in order to appeal to the biggest audience, to draw the biggest ratings in several different markets across America, you really need to have a perception that there are plenty of different variety of people who are able to be represented. That is just not only for diversity, for the sake of diversity, for the sake of making your company mainstream. You know, there's this talk, and one of the things CM Punk said that, you know, kind of rubbed me the wrong way is, I'm here for professional wrestling, and whenever I hear wrestling companies promote professional wrestling, it's a very specific, like, underground feel. It reminds me of, there's a saying, real hip-hop, you know, where, oh, Jay-Z's not real hip-hop. It's like, what are you talking about? You know, real hip-hop is this underground grunge aspect of hip-hop that excludes a lot of people. And I feel like when wrestling leans in on pro wrestling, it's this indie-rific type feel and type vibe. And that independent wrestling era, it was a lot of white excellence. It was a lot of the top stars were these, you know, the Heyman Adam Pages of the world, the CM Punks of the world, the Daniel Bryans of the world. And that's all good and well in terms of having them in a professional wrestling company. But eventually, they're going to overlap. Do we really need CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, and Kenny Omega? Are they adding more viewers, or are you now starting to overlap in who you're making happy? At some point, they're going to need to pivot and maybe have some different people who represent different cultures in order for this company to come across as something that is for everybody.
Yeah, I love all that. And the thing is, they have the talent there. Like, they've had multiple opportunities, I feel like, with a guy like Scorpio Sky. I feel like he's had multiple chances. He's had a couple of times against Cody for the TNT title where I thought he had a good opportunity. Will Hobbs is somebody they should be grooming right now. Like, he should be dominant. And he is dominant, but he should be a prominent feature on TV, somebody that people are talking about weekly, kind of the way they did Darby. They did an excellent job building up Darby, and I don't see that same build going into a Will Hobbs or a Scorpio Sky. The women they've done a little bit better with, but even then, outside of Jade is the one, and hopefully they do right by her.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I'm surprised it's taken this long from the time she debuted on television, where I had never seen or heard of this woman, and when she debuted with Cody Rhodes, like, I couldn't take my eyes off of her. Yeah. And the fact that it's taken this long for her even to start her push, because now she's finally getting on national television, is baffling to me. It's like, this is The Rock. This is Brock Lesnar. This is a whether AEW has anything to do with it or not, this will be a mainstream star, whether she goes to movies, whether she goes off to WWE, whatever she chooses to do with her life, she will be a mainstream star. And AEW needs to capitalize on this now.
Yeah, and honestly, I would even have her, like, if you don't think she's ready for these long matches, because I agree with you, she should have already been on this track, and she should be going through people like Goldberg. Like, she should literally be the female Goldberg, just mowing down people in a minute, 2 minutes. So then when she is in a 5-minute match, it's like, oh, wow, okay, she showed me something there. Like, yeah, I agree. This should have been started from the week after she got that big victory with Shaq against Cody.
100%, that would have been the perfect time, because that's when all the eyeballs were on her. That episode of AEW Dynamite did over 1 million viewers, and from then on, it should have been like, let's go. And I don't buy into this whole thing about giving it time. Oh, she's just too green right now. To your point, Goldberg, Ultimate Warrior, two of the biggest stars in the history of pro wrestling, were not known for going 15, 20 minutes. And I know AEW is a quote-unquote work rate company, but they got to get away from that in terms of just that being their calling card. You got a Jade Cargill, you play to her strengths, Paul Heyman was a master of this, where in ECW, when he saw somebody who he saw star potential in, if they had a weakness and that weakness was professional wrestling and they weren't able to go 20 minutes, well, then have their matches be short and focus on their strengths. So you cannot convince me that Jade Cargill needs to wait until she learns how to work, brother. You need to capitalize on this star power however you see fit. It is a fake sport. You're a booker. You have a pencil. It's as easy as booking.
And, as much as we were ragging on AEW, WWE, they had a great thing going with Bianca Belair, and they decided to take 6 steps back with SummerSlam. So let's not leave them out of all the fun. What is the real issue with WWE? We've got Bobby Lashley, who's been dominant. He's been on top. And then we have Bianca Belair, who they've done a great job with. Everything they've done with her up until SummerSlam has been fantastic. What do you make of representation in the WWE right now?
It's a better late than never scenario. They are coming around to it, and I think they've done a fantastic job over the last couple of years in finally promoting black talent to the level of being perennial top stars. Bobby Lashley, Bianca Belair, as you mentioned, Big E getting a big push right now. You had Kofi Mania. So they're doing a great job. Hit Row in NXT. Odyssey Jones projects to be a big star. I'm loving what WWE's doing. But to the point about Bianca Belair, I was completely baffled, and it is very bothersome to me that this happened to Bianca Belair, because not all championship reigns are created equally. This was a historic championship reign in that first 2 black women to main event WrestleMania, and here we go again with another black historic reign ending unceremoniously, where Kofi Kingston, the reference point to that is, Bianca Belair got Kofi'd. So, it's a very specific trend in terms of who this happens to when it comes to these historic reigns. And your WWE is going to hear from a contingent of black fans who support Kofi Kingston, who support Bianca Belair, because Bianca Belair as a top star is not the same thing as people who support Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch ended up getting her shot, and she ended up enduring a lot of adversity, but Bianca Belair and Kofi Kingston, their title reigns are bigger than just professional wrestling. It's bigger than WWE. It's bigger than fake wrestling. It is a historic, trailblazing title reign that represents the beginning of black excellence. And for these 2 reigns to end in such ugly fashion, and for that now to be a trend, is something that I think WWE should be held accountable for.
Yeah, and I love the way you put that. It's bigger than wrestling. You know, it's for. I mean, it literally, the culture was completely behind Kofi Mania, and you saw the impact. The culture was behind Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks, and you could see the instant reaction just on Twitter, just anywhere there was an instant type of reaction. You could just see it. It was almost a deflating type reaction. Like, how could we do this? We've built her up. I would argue she might have been the most well built up character or wrestler in WWE, maybe outside of Bobby Lashley. Like, she was built up that well. She had a great moment, and you could have got to this exact same place in a. I don't agree with her losing, but if you're going to have her lose, just have them have a 10, 15-minute match. Becky Lynch cheats, then you at least have a reason for this. There's no reason for her to lose to a punch and a move. Like, she's way too good for that. It was very deflating is the word I would use. At least that's how I was feeling right after I saw it.
100, you and about 45,000 other people. I was in the building for that.
Oh, my goodness.
And I mean, you talk about the air coming out of a stadium when just seconds earlier there was this fervor. And I agree with you. Like, if we would have seen a match, I fully expected Becky Lynch to win. This is not a matter of Bianca Belair just losing. It's how she lost, and it's also the fact that she's promoted as the EST. She's the best, the quickest, the biggest, the fastest. She's a superhero. And for her to lose like that, given the fact that we were kind of promised that this was going to be a match that would tear the roof down, this was just baffling, and it really did affect the enthusiasm of the show for at least 2 matches.
Yeah, and like you said, especially when they had the fever pitch they had, because people were just, you could see it on TV, and I'm sure you felt it in the crowd when Becky Lynch comes back and they have this huge face-to-face, and you're like, oh my gosh, we're about to get this now? Like, oh man, WWE strikes again. They just can't get out of their own way sometimes. They have a layup and they want to try to throw it off the glass and alley-oop dunk it. I don't understand. But let's move on to CM Punk makes his huge debut, and it's got everybody talking. A big ratings draw. They grew about 400,000 from the last viewing of the debut episode of Rampage. What are your thoughts on CM Punk debuting, and how big of a difference maker is this really going to be?
I think it's going to be huge. I think it already is huge. It'll be interesting to see what they do moving forward, but given the talent in AEW and given how they booked pro wrestling in these first couple of years, I have no reason to believe that they're going to screw this up. I mean, they've taken guys like Rusev, who were complete jokes in WWE toward the end of his run, and they've made him a killer. Same with Aleister Black, or Malachi Black now, to where he was really kind of floundering in WWE, and he's one of my favorite guys right now. He's the next Undertaker in terms of what I think his potential could be in AEW. So you got a guy like CM Punk, who's the big white whale in pro wrestling in terms of a guy who people are holding out hope for his return. Now that they have him back, I think CM Punk and Darby Allin makes a lot of sense. I thought that moment that they created with CM Punk's return was perfect. I thought him just coming out, they didn't make their fans wait too long. They just played that music and created this just beautiful moment that I thought was one of the all-time best television wrestling moments I've ever seen. So I'm very happy about CM Punk being back in AEW. I'm enthusiastic about his prospects. Obviously, I would like to see some black people involved in terms of feuding with CM Punk. This is a perfect opportunity for somebody who nobody knows to come in and feud with CM Punk. Will Hobbs, some of these names we were talking about before. Dante Martin, who I absolutely love. Just somebody, one of these younger guys to come up and feud with CM Punk. These give it time, people. It doesn't take time. It takes the rub. And some of the part of this time is you put somebody in there with CM Punk, they're automatically treated as a star of that level. So, I really hope that they do right by us on that measure. But I really did love the CM Punk thing. I've loved everything they've done with CM Punk.
Yeah, I agree with you, and you're absolutely right. It's all about, you just got to give them the opportunity, and if they fall on their face, they're falling on their face, but you put them in the ring with their, Punk's going to take care of them, and Martin is another guy who I think just every time he's given an opportunity, he knocks it out the park, so he's somebody who I would be more willing to give that opportunity. Hobbs is a guy, somebody like Punk would love to work with, where he could just let Hobbs just be this beast, and Punk can work from underneath. Punk can still beat him, and Hobbs can gain a lot in defeat. I thought Hobbs gained a lot when he lost to Christian Cage, and he took the L, but he gained a lot in that match, just being in the ring and hanging with a guy like Christian Cage, who is now the Impact champion. So yeah, hopefully, especially Hobbs, I think he's the one who could benefit the most from a CM Punk match. Who do you want to see most Who do you want to see CM Punk take on most in AEW?
I really do like the idea of CM Punk and Darby Allin. Even before he came to AEW, when those rumors first started up, Darby Allin was a guy who just made so much sense as an opponent for CM Punk, just because. And I'm kind of let down that it's going to happen so quickly, because AEW All Out is just around the corner. It's only a couple of weeks, and I think this feud, you take a month or two building this up. I think the stuff that Darby Allin could do with the films, CM Punk's promos, I think there's just so much creative juice between CM Punk and Darby Allin that this is the match that I think is very exciting to see. But there are Kenny Omega would be a very fun match with CM Punk. I even want to see him. You know what I want to see? And this is me being messy. CM Punk and Colt Cabana could be a lot of fun. You know what I'm saying? Drop between these. He hinted toward having a lot of unfinished business. I'm not sure that's what he was talking about, but that is unfinished business he has, to where we all know that these guys were best friends. And, just seeing CM Punk and Colt Cabana could be just some of that amazing art imitating life type wrestling that I think could tell a great story.
That would be a great, like, Dynamite Rampage main event, because people would 100% tune in to be like, yo, I wonder what's going to really, because you could see them cutting some very personal and real promos leading up to it, really kind of blurring the lines. And yeah, I actually really like that idea and hope that's something they don't just sweep under the rug, because I think at the least that could be a really intriguing Dynamite main event. I mean, look at what Jericho's been able to do with these main events. I think him and Colt Cabana would do even better. So yeah, I really like that idea a lot. Okay, so let's wrap. We've gone long here. This has been real fun chopping it up. With our final count, let's wrap it up with, who do you see having a breakout? It's almost the last quarter of 2021. Who in 2022? I know we got a couple months, but who do you see kind of maybe starting a path to having a breakout year in 2022? And it could be in any company, but who do you see kind of on that trajectory right now?
We talked about him earlier. It's Dante Martin. And he was the big exception to the rule of give it time, because all he needed, not a match, he didn't need a couple of months, he needed one comeback. The second he tagged into that match, a minute and 21 seconds, this guy becomes a superstar. And, to my point about representation, we haven't seen him since. He's disappeared off the face of the earth.
You're right.
You give it time. If you foster something like that, if you follow up, if you have him cut promos and slowly start working with people, this man is ready to be a superstar, and he's only 20 years old. So Dante Martin, I mean, this guy tore the roof off the place, and I'm a big Ray Phoenix fan. I love Ray Phoenix. He's just one of my favorite people to watch in the ring. And Dante Phoenix gave me Dante Phoenix. See, he gave me so much of those vibes when calling him Dante Phoenix. Dante Martin gave me those vibes of Ray Phoenix, of just being able to do things that I just really haven't seen from too many wrestlers in a wrestling ring. And if you just showcase this, a minute and 21 seconds, you don't have a minute and 21 seconds per week between the 3 hours of television you have. Give Dante Martin a minute and 21 seconds every week. You will make a superstar.
And to your point, you could just show his video highlights and just put a nice little song behind it, show his highlights, show his face in the dark or something, nice little package. Bam. People are like, oh yeah, I can't wait to see what he's going to do when he steps in the ring. Especially like on a Rampage show where you have viewership coming in, that's the perfect time to show a highlight package or something like that. Like you said, to emphasize what he was able to do in a hot tag minute and 20 seconds, a viral clip. You could put that on one of those commercials for Rampage, and he would have got 1 million more eyeballs on what he could do. I think Dante Martin's a great call.
Absolutely. And, I love your idea about highlight packages. AEW really hasn't taken advantage of, like, TikTok. And this is another way I think that they're just closing off too many portions of an audience that I think they can get. They need to take advantage of TikTok, and by putting Dante Martin highlight packages to some of these viral TikTok songs, that could make him a huge star with younger people. I mean, he's only 20 years old. He can easily connect with the young audience that has evaded pro wrestling for so long. And I think that is something that absolutely, as you get him ready as a talker, as a fully fleshed out wrestler, you put these clips on the internet, and I'm all for that.
I love it. Well, Alfred, man, we ran long. We chopped that one all the way up. I really appreciate you coming on, man. You have a wealth of knowledge to bestow upon people. Please tell everyone any and everything you're working on. Plug everything that you got going on.
For sure, man. I really appreciate being on here. Follow me on Twitter at This Is Nasty. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Pro Wrestling Bits. I'll be on the Wrestling Inc. podcast every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, and some pay-per-views, just talking wrestling, and a lot of fun talking to you, Scott. We got to do this again.
Yeah, all you gotta do is let me know when, and you are welcome back on anytime. This was a lot of fun. But as always, you can find me at the Vover app, at Regular Scott, and on Twitter at Need for Marvel vs. DC. And y'all have a good time, because we're going to have a good time until we talk to y'all next time. Peace.
Vover!